wake up in some freaky nightclub in Bryce's basement, which we can't talk about because of the pending lawsuit. You're right here live.
Somewhere.
You're right here live.
Oh. Happy Monday, everybody.
Yeah.
Brian is off checking to make sure the child is alive. Sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes the kid's got to be alive.
Yeah, and when you know it's your seed and you're giving your pension for mischief.
I know, we were setting up, and I just heard him scream from downstairs, "God damn it!" I was like, oh, something happened. But we're all good. Kids doing good. These kids are resilient.
Oh, they're made of rubber, these kids.
Yeah.
Bouncing around.
Yeah.
Having a great time.
We're all good. Welcome.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
Oh, yeah.
Are we live?
We are live.
That explains why I exist.
Welcome to Metaphysical Things.
I gotta log into all the places for all the things.
Sure. Do all the things, right?
Oh, you know what? Hold on.
What's up?
I'm gonna save it for the show.
Okay.
Yeah, good to make sure there's no dead kids in the house. Yeah, nothing really. Just sours the evening for the wife when she comes home, and that happens.
Women.
Am I right? By the way, decent chance we have a kid attack. A kid attack.
Awesome.
So get ready.
I tell you, fellas, women be caring.
Women be caring about their kids.
It's every time you're trying to do something, women be caring.
You're like, I'm gonna drown my baby. And women be all like, no, you shouldn't. I care about that. I'm like, damn, woman.
Yeah, woman, what the hell you doing?
I was gonna do. Never mind. Pretend I did the Eddie Murphy bit, but about caring about your kid. Happy Monday. Oh yeah, there's a lot of muskiness.
Oh, I thought you meant in the room.
I'm like literally first
it.
like, Brian showers, you lie.
Yeah.
He's really got sensitive,
I mean, IRL, definitely Bryce walked in and smelled the tuna that I had for breakfast this morning. Where I just took tuna, warmed it up, and threw soy sauce and a bit of Cajun seasoning on it. I'm like, breakfast? Nah.
That's weird, man.
It's only the beginning.
The beginning of your all tuna diet?
No, the beginning of the horrific downward spiral if you begin to examine Brian's culinary habits.
Culinary.
So I've told you before, I have the most counterintuitive way of dieting possible. And every time I tell it to people, they just look at me funny. They're
You're
like, I'm
like,
an
I eat
idiot.
a lot of refined sugar, refined salts, refined fats, and
Very
refined.
refined. You have
And
no idea
and
how
I
close
mix
to
it
the truth
all
you really
with
are.
pure high fructose corn syrup.
You have no idea how close to the truth you are.
Yeah, I think you are. You've actually nailed it because I think I know what Andrew's going to say.
So, like, I went off to Florida and I was there for like 2 weeks, and then like I worked a lot getting stuff done, but I ate a lot, going visit my parents, eat a lot. Came back, I weighed like 194, right? 6'2", can carry it, can put it on the side meat there, or whatever. But I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm getting a little lazy here. I need to drop some weight. So I got back 3.5 weeks ago, right? Dropped 10 pounds. And Andrew, how did you do this? Well, I've spent most of that sitting in front of my computer screen, right? So what is the secret to this diet? Like, I don't really believe in doing aerobic exercise to burn calories because it's hugely inefficient, and because your amount of calories you actually burn off is just minimal compared to the amount of time spent. You really have to do it through dieting. But aerobic exercise is great for the heart. It's great for all those other things. There's reasons to do it. But people are like, oh, I'm going to do this to exercise to lose weight. It's like, no, that's not the way you do it. It's science. I do the whole, like, I break down, I eat a bunch of smaller meals. I'll eat like 5 meals a day, like 5 smaller meals. But I'll go for like, 300 or 400 calorie meals. So I'll do that. And how do I do this? I just go to McDonald's and I'll get like their salads and their chicken wraps. So I go to McDonald's to lose weight. I tell people like, oh yeah, like I do my McDonald's diet. Like, what? You're insane. I'm like, no, like they have the apple slices, they have the grilled chicken wraps, they have the salads. I never touch the fries. I haven't had McDonald's fries in forever. I never touch the fries. I don't touch anything with a bun.
You got to watch out for the sauce though. On the salads, it's all the dressing.
Yeah, but true. But it's like it's a if an 80 calorie dressing versus a 340 calorie French fry.
Mm-hmm.
And also weight calories are measured. But again, people go, you gotta do this. Like, I lost 10 pounds. I'm at 184 right now.
All right,
so,
hold on. I say we start the show because we have a brand new fan that just joined us in the chat because he saw the words Bigfoot and dating in the title.
Oh yeah, I just put whatever in those titles.
No, that's great. No. We're going to talk about that. We're going to
Okay.
talk about that. Let's kick it off.
all ready?
Take it away.
We're good to go.
Yeah. Take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young and Brian Brushwood. This is the #1 Bigfoot dating show.
Oh, heck yeah. Justin, did you see when he gave the rose to the Loch Ness Monster? Did you expect that?
I thought that the skunk ape was so disgusting the way she acted getting so drunk the night of the honeymoon suite.
Oh, and the brown lady ghost, she was mad upset. She said
the chupacabra really worked hard. Really, really worked hard. You clean him up, he stood a chance, but it's just there's all that kind of bias and whatnot. I think he sounds like the most interesting man in the world, to be honest with you.
I really just hope that the Jersey Devil's the next Bachelorette.
Oh my gosh, can't wait. Meanwhile, guys, it's time to play our favorite part of Weird Things, the super fun photo quiz.
Yay!
Long-time listeners know that we love the Super Time photo quiz, and that, oh my God, I know what this photo is, and I know what this photo quiz. Man, oh man. I think this showed up on my Facebook feed. Justin, do you know what we're looking at right now? Can you describe it for everybody at home?
Well, it certainly looks like a forest floor with a bunch of brown leaves, some newer green growth kind of sprouting up around it. But no, I have no idea what this is other than just a random picture of a forest floor.
So Justin, you're walking along. Maybe you got your big wooden staff that you got at the Renaissance Fair with the dragon's head on it and the lacquer, that sort of thing. Like you're maybe wearing some baggy pants and maybe a cloak, as you're known to do when you go through the forest.
Yeah,
enjoying a satchel full of books. Some really obscure medieval fantasy fiction, whatever. Maybe your fanfic too that you're writing about, like Dragonlance.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. All these things that I definitely have.
Okay. So you're walking along and you take a step, you put your hands on your hips and you're like, I love nature. I love this. And then a little elf pops out from behind a tree, maybe a forest ranger, could be an elf. And they say, hey, Justin,
Okay.
take a look around you. You like nature?
Sure. Yeah. I love nature. Nature's the best.
You're not going to think that if you keep walking where you're about to walk.
Really? Wait, I mean, but I don't know. I mean, like nature's about. I'm here on the walk for nature.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. I love every bit of it. You know, I think really the problem we have in this country is that we're not more in touch with nature.
So, well, you're about to be really in touch with nature because, often in the first segment of some podcasts I've heard, it's usually almost always about what?
Snakes?
What if I told you you're looking at a snake right now?
Right.
No, I'm
now.
not. Stop it. I'm not looking at it. That's a
Okay,
forest
hold on,
floor.
hold on, real quick. Let me up the stakes on this, Justin. I am
Up the
not
stakes.
kidding you right now. I'm going to up the stakes on this, Justin. Right now, there is a snake in this photo, and I will give you $20. I will PayPal you $20 if you can find it in the next 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to stare at this. All right. Suddenly,
5
Justin
minutes
is not
later.
interested in being on the podcast, and he's only.
No, I'm
You put
looking at it. No,
$20 on
I
the
gotta look here. I gotta get a good gander at this.
Now,
this
as
here.
we've learned from previous episodes, you're never safe. You're not safe on the internet, as we found from the people in the Indonesian internet cafe, where the guy
Internet
literally
cafe.
just opens the door to leave the cafe. It's why the real world sucks, folks. He got away from his computer. He was gonna go like, guys, enough of this computer stuff. I'm gonna go for a walk. I'm gonna get some fresh air and some nature. He opens up the door. He doesn't even step outside. And what happened? Damn
That snake
snake
came right
jumped
up in him.
through the door. It's like that'll
Is it?
teach you. It's why we never leave. It's why I just drink Soylent and use Amazon Prime to survive. So-
Amazon Instant Now and drone delivery
Okay,
will be your salvation.
Ryan, I don't know what. I'm as much as I would love to take your $20, man. I'm gonna have to tap out on this. I was never really good at these photo hunts to begin with, but now I'm terrified. I thought me and nature were cool. Next thing you know, they're hiding snakes right in front of me.
How about
Okay,
we do
All right,
this?
so
We'll
what-
start
here's
at the
what you
top.
need to do. Take your
All right,
finger.
well, hold on, real quick. I can I give you a hint, Justin?
Wait,
Sure.
use a finger hint. Tell him where to put the finger.
Look at my screen where my finger is. You'll notice my finger is dead center in the center of my screen. That is where the snake is.
Put
I
your
am-
finger on the screen right now in the center of the button.
I am now telling you where this snake is. Can you see it, knowing that I'm telling you that there's a snake there?
It's really dead center.
Dead center.
Look for bands.
Oh, you want to know what? I can't see this. I can't see this snake.
All right,
No.
get ready.
right,
Get
Justin.
ready for the magic. Get ready for the magic, dude. Enhance. Okay, so now,
We
hold on.
zoomed in a little bit. Can you
All
see
right,
it?
get ready. It's in the center right now. Right now, it's in the exact center. Now it's slightly above center.
It's just like some sort of tiny snake.
It
like
looks like a reverse question mark.
All right, we're gonna get another zoom.
All right,
Boop.
enhance,
Boop.
enhance, enhance.
Oh my God.
Do you see it?
Oh Jesus Christ. That is. That looks like it, like a poor Photoshop. Like that looks amazing.
Right? It looks like somebody just photoshopped the letter S and clicked emboss, and then there it is.
Oh
And it's
my
so amazing. When
God.
it's further back, you only see part of it, and you zoom in closer, you see more of the snake, and then more. And you're like, oh my God, there's a snake there.
So is this like one of these viral things that's happening where it's like, hey, point out
Yeah.
the snake,
Yeah.
share it once you get it, tag 5 friends who love snakes?
I'll tell you what. There's every random moment that you're like, oh no, I get it. That's why nature works.
Yeah, it works really well. So, gentlemen, got some other cool photos. I want to show you a real quick one. You heard about the tree stump on Mars?
I'm sorry, it sounded as though you asked about a tree
Hey,
stump
hold
on
Wait a minute,
Mars.
Trees? I didn't know that Mars had trees. I mean,
Apparently
the
they do, guys. There is a tree stump on Mars. Well, there's a photo of what looks like a petrified tree stump. And I'm going to challenge. I gave Bryce no warning on this one, so we'll see if he's able to find it. But hey, there's a lot of cool photos from Mars because it turns out that Mars has as much land as Earth does. And because, without the oceans taking up, space,
Sure,
as much
sure.
land, which means there's going to be a lot of weird things you're going to find, including we've seen this before. We've seen from little small features, these little weird berries type things. We've seen the sloping lineae, which is what may be water flowing in a very briny solution, a lot of just amazing and fascinating features, weird looking rocks, and now we have this.
Oh my God.
Okay.
And this is the quote from wherever Bryce, whatever British tabloid Bryce has found this on. Alien hunters claim to have found evidence that the red planet may have once been lush with green vegetation, as there is the petrified remains of a Martian tree.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, from that vantage point, gosh darn it, if it doesn't look like a petrified like a little tree had been snapped in half.
It's a little bit jaggy for my tastes to believe it's a tree. Like not enough rounding. Like it does look like to me it looks a little bit more like a calcified crystal growth. Like I don't know, like something crystallized on the Martian surface.
Well, you don't think that the side of the tree is sufficiently barky?
I think it's too barky.
Look at the rock behind there, and you get this sort of the slatted sort of rocks with deposition layers, which implies erosion or implies that some forms of that. So, it could be anything, but that we thought looks like a tree stump. It certainly does look like part of a tree stump. No disputing that at all. And we're going to find lots of things on Mars that are going to look like other things, but are going to probably have regular, normal geological explanations. It would be weird if they didn't. But
with the trees in the back or the rocks in the background, it almost looks like the scale of this would be huge, right? Like if there's a bit of a dune almost in the bottom left corner here that makes me think this is way bigger than we.
You know what's funny is like when I first looked at it, I would have described it as 3 to 4 feet tall, but looking at that dune and thinking about it in the scale that you described it, Bryce. Like then it suddenly looks like it's a 50 or 100 foot tall monolith.
Right.
Pretty sure it's only 3 or 4 feet tall because from the vantage point this was taken, if it was taken from one of our little rovers, then
right. But Bryce does make a good point because this is why those mysterious gravity spots work on the side of hills. Is like oftentimes what happens is the land shifts due to a partial mudslide or whatever, and then your brain, when it sees trees in the background, it assumes they're vertical up and down. But after a minor landslide, the trees are very oftentimes like at a 30 or 45 degree angle, which skews your perspective of where down is, and that's why they're able to do demonstrations of like water rolling uphill and all that stuff. And so I would say this was the same thing, like seeing. When I didn't notice the dune that Bryce was talking about, it looked 3 foot tall. But then when Bryce said, no, look at the dune, I perceived it as a, large, 20 foot tall sand drift or whatever. And then all of a sudden it skewed everything.
The person, I guess, who originally posted this photo on YouTube did describe it as about being 3 feet in height. So it's just kind of a weird, sense of scale.
Like an artifact, right?
yeah.
The biggest problem is, of course, like if this was like 100 feet tall, then it would need to be, as Andrew intuited, shot from an aircraft that was in order to not see the horizon.
And it would be
back.
we would have probably seen it already. Like it would be much more widely known than this past month. We have another photo.
So it's cool. It's one of these things that's, very cool about the idea of, exploration is that even just right now with just one little robot, we've had a couple little robot-sized probes, we're seeing fascinating things. And I think it's why I personally love the idea of getting people on the ground. What else are we going to find? And it can just all be geological phenomena, and it could be fascinating if you're a geologist. Speaking of fascinating.
I guess that's the greatest thing about where we're at right now in terms of exploration, which is also awesome that like we kind of over the last 10 years sort of have these like grayed out future things of like, all right, exploration. What do we explore these days, right? We explore the bottom of the sea. We've explored, this little corridor of space a little bit. But now this like, oh, wow, now we have more time. We have more access. And like things like Mars, like humans on Mars is a, either anywhere between distinct possibility or pending reality, depending on where you want to put it. But like now just the idea of like, oh, wow, I guess there's just like a lot of assumptions that we've had that, we've done our best to inform them. But like now we're just gonna get to see for ourselves. This is just so exciting.
Well, we're going to tell you some rumors and innuendos about timelines for Mars right after we tell you about what we're doing with our Patreon.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yes.
No, go ahead, Justin.
Patreon.com/Weird Things is where you can support this very, very show. Head on over there right now. Patreon.com/Weird Things. But not only are you going to get special RSS feeds for our After Things show, you will also get so much more. Isn't that right, Bryce?
That's right. We've been talking about finding new ways to add goals to some of the Patreons, and one of them that we're looking at doing for Weird Things is a feed of just Journey Quest. So it would be the Journey Quest episodes that have been already done, cut out, and on their own, as their own episodes, and then any future Journey Quests would go in that feed, only accessible to patrons. And I think the number we were looking at last time we talked was about $5.50 an episode, so it's pretty reachable. And at that level, we'll also do more detailed show notes, which includes time codes and more links to articles that we talked about in the show. So if you're not already, please go to patreon.com/weirdthings and pitch in. $1 an episode means a lot.
Dude, what is this? $81. $81 in pledges is all we need to make Project Journey Quest happen, where you can listen to the longest, most meandering audiobook you've ever heard.
Meandering?
I mean, I'm sorry. You may say meandering. What I mean is there's lots of twists and turns.
Said meandering.
Yeah, no. Brian said, you may say meandering, and by you, I mean me. But what I really mean...
What I mean is there's lots of twists and turns and surprises, and I think you'll have a great time, especially if you love Quiznos.
Brian, it's not like I make this up 2 minutes before the show starts.
Good point.
I make it up as soon as we announce it's time to do Journey Quest.
Yeah.
That's giving me way too much credit.
We are super, super pumped about this. And to be honest, I'm really excited about the Journey Quest thing because, like, I would love to listen to it all back to back to back to back to back. Like, that is an experience that literally nobody, including us, have ever had, listening to this as one solid story.
And we've had people ask about it in the Reddit and in other places of like, hey, what if can I just get, I just want to, like, it's kind of hard, and it's in all these episodes and it's not in every episode, so this way we'll make it a lot easier to get.
I gotta be honest, like, I feel like I'm terrified at the idea of listening to it straight through, because very rarely have I read an audiobook where, like, a third of the way in, the narrator forgets what the story is and very obviously doesn't remember what he just said before then.
Sure.
I think I've remembered mostly what's gone on for the most
part.
No,
I'm talking about us, like the main character actors.
I'm not violently arguing with you and saying that I haven't forgotten. I'm just saying maybe I have not. But gentlemen, that's great. That's all nice. But you know what happened today that's now become, we're at the moment of a ho-hum?
What?
SpaceX had a launch this morning.
Oh, yeah. It put off from the weekend, right?
Yeah, they did an NRO landing. And oh, my God, we're watching it land back on the pad. And you know what? There are actually SpaceX conspiracy theorists that, like, don't actually think they launch or land stuff.
Oh,
hold on. I have thoughts, but I want to hear more about these guys.
I had a friend who is very prone to these sorts of things, who's like, well, you know, there's some people who think it's like some flat earthers, other people think it's a conspiracy. I'm like, what? Like, well, you know, if you watch some of the feeds, it looks like it's, you know, when they're blue screen stuff. I'm like, when the people in front, I'm like, where have they done that? Oh, like when they're in the, like they're supposed to be in front of the control room cheering. I'm like, they're in front of the control room cheering. Well, it looks fake. Like, what does that mean? And so anyhow, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it's one of these things. Like, how are you, you know, like you're just saying, you know, it's like I've seen plenty of shops in my day. It looks, you know, it's like, all right, you know, we can have an entire discussion about criterion, evidence, and whatnot, but that seems like a really extreme point of view. They landed today. SpaceX landed. This was a very high value mission for National Reconnaissance Office, the NRO, which is like the super spooky space agency that is like, or a spy agency that's like, you know, got like probably one of the biggest budgets of all because so much of it's like off the books kind of thing. And they actually, NRO is interesting too because they're like in a lot of like government bids and stuff. NRO can actually just sort of say we're going to hire whoever we want in the interest of national security, which has been interesting. But now they've decided they're going to use SpaceX. I've attempted to use them for this, which is great. booster landed, etc. But meanwhile, what was really cool is this weekend, on Friday, Elon Musk did a TED interview. Spoke at TED with was it, I think, Chris Anderson, and it was about a 40-minute interview. And he talked about, one of the big things was he unveiled his boring company. That's the company that wants to build tunnels underneath our very feet.
Yeah.
And there's a video. Have you seen this video demonstration of what
No,
they're doing?
I've not.
Watch this. So this is the demonstration of how this would work. So we're watching a beautiful Tesla pull up to what's called a skate. Basically, it's just the size of a parking spot on the side of the road in a busy street, and it's now lowered on an elevator into a massive underground system of tunnels. And it's driven along by this electric skate. So the car's on a platform that's actually moving it through the tunnel system.
Oh,
and
wow.
It can go up to like 140 miles an hour, is what he describes it. He uses an example of like in Los Angeles, you could get from the middle of town to the airport in 5 minutes. And
there are also mock-ups for people movers too. In this video.
He shows like they have what here is just a bunch of people in like kind of a public transport with clear plastic that getting into that. And the point that he makes, and I think this is true. I've had a discussion with somebody about the tunnel thing before, and they're like, and it was all my talking points I watched Musk repeat, which this person says, well, you're just going to, if you move roads underground, you're still going to have congestion. And I'm like, it's 3D. It's 3D. You can only build one layer of roads on the surface. You can have a couple, overpasses and stuff, but you can't do that. Tunnels, you just keep doing more and more tunnels. We dig deeper than we build buildings, which is a point that Musk pointed out. And so if you have the tunnel technology, and that's the critical problem. And I've heard this, the rebuttal is like, well, it's expensive. It's like, yeah, if only we had the guy that figured out how to reduce the cost of space travel by a factor of 10, work on tunnels.
A gamer chick in the chat says, why not just transport people and get rid of cars altogether? Because it's not that simple. It's the reason why a lot of like light rail stuff is very successful in some cities that are, walking and commuter friendly, and not in others that are very car friendly. Very often you want to get from point A to point B, the congestion point, very quickly, but you'd like to drive specifically where you want to go past that.
Right. Well,
yeah,
and
there's
specifically like the factor of optioning. Like, for example, we just went to Canada, and it was important to us, even though we didn't know what we would need of all the stuff that we packed and threw into trunks. We knew that the hotel would be one place and that the venue where I would perform would be at another place. And so it was worth the extra $50, $100 to rent a car rather than just do a taxi, because I knew that I wanted the option of being able to drive over to the venue and know that the entire show was in the back seat of this vehicle and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I keep a bunch of stuff in my car, like books and things like that. If I go somewhere I might need to give to people. And there are times when I don't need that, and there are times when you do that. The self-driving future is going to do two things. It'll put more vehicles on the road, but they'll be electric, But one of the things it will do, though, is that it will increase your ability, make it a lot easier for a lot of the things. We're like, if I want to carry a bunch of groceries or something like that, then I want my own car. I don't want to have to share a vehicle with a bunch of 5 other people to be like, meet me at the supermarket and wait 5 minutes in the parking lot for me to load.
Yeah.
It's silly. But, you think about this, though, is that like, and we go, in the future, they'll send you all the groceries you need. We're still going to want to browse. We're going to still want to do that. It's yes, and there's always going to be options. So we've talked about this in the show where through a lot of discussion, like, we see a future like maybe your family has one car, your one sort of car that you kind of keep. And not everybody will need that. But you can have the one sort of family car, which might be the big old minivan kind of thing. And think about this. Now, I think this thing that amazes me about the tunnel stuff, and it's worth watching, is Musk gets into what they're trying to do because they want to make it 10 times cheaper, right? They want to reduce the cost factor by 10, and he explains how they think they can do that from making smaller tunnel size, making this tunnel smaller, changing the process in which you bore a machine. Half the time the boring machine isn't there because you're reinforcing. He talks about if you can reinforce it as you go along. He talks about how if you improve the thermal efficiency of the tunnel, of the boring machine, you can get a speed increase. So he lists off all these things that you can do. If you do this, do you do this, do this, like he did with space travel, how you could increase the speed. And he gives some great examples there. He talks about how how fast are tunnels right now? And he says, my kids have a pet snail named Gary from SpongeBob, and Gary is a very slow snail because the tunneling machines are 14 times slower than Gary. And his goal is if we can beat Gary, we can do that. He talks about how in Los Angeles there was we had a tunnel extension that was about 2.5 miles that cost $2 billion. It was $1 billion a mile, which is ridiculously expensive. If you want to build a massive tunnel network, you can't do it at that scale. Now, of course, there was a comment in the comment room says, well, he's catering to like the coast. It's like, no, he lives in LA. This is where he focuses. But any place with sufficient density would want to be able to utilize this.
So in the case of SpaceX, there's a very tangible difference of how he wanted to do things, like launch the first stage, land the first stage, reuse the first stage. Like, I get that. That's fundamentally transformative. Mm-hmm. Is there a similar technology, a similar pivot that makes the Boring Company as inspiring as SpaceX?
A more efficient boring machine.
Okay. But no single easy to tell grandma idea.
If you say this thing goes 10 times faster, builds a tunnel 10 times faster and cheaper, because I think it's kind of quasi between where SpaceX was and Tesla was, where Tesla's like, if we can solve this problem, and Tesla, a big part of the thing was the battery tech. We can solve the battery tech type system, and then the next gen problem for them is the vision system. Then we have this thing.
Right.
So yeah,
Justin,
so it's more the like we just need to build a better battery, and they need to build a better boring machine, right? And I suspect part of what I think you can see with a lot of Elon Musk's inefficiencies that he likes to attack to make these companies is the idea of like, all right, well, let's put, now that there are these weird people like Elon Musk that are super rich and super smart, and the money in like super rich is this astronomical kind of level. Now you can say, all right, well, who's buying companies, these machines that make tunnels? Like, they're usually governments, if not massive private construction companies that are just, they got money to burn. But let's innovate in these spaces where not a lot of innovation necessarily needs to happen, because the people that own the machines don't rent them out all that often, and the people that they rent them to generally don't care about the price all that much.
Yeah, that's a critical thing, and it's very much like the rocket industry is that you'd say, okay, one of the problems you get into why things are expensive, it's because the market will pay that. And when the market is the government, and if you have all of your major companies that do this say, yes, this is how much it costs, which is what happened with rockets, with between Boeing and Lockheed, everybody else, like, yeah, no, this is the area, this is the window. You maybe get 10% or 15% save your cost. That's it. The same with massive tunnel projects and once you start a tunnel project, you can't really fire the people that you started with. You can put all sorts of little things about how much, the big dig, you look at all these things, and it's just a recipe for just out of control expensive. And the slower it is, you as a company are incentivized for that. You want it to be slower because you're making money by, getting paid for all of the overhead, for all this going, getting paid for every person working on it and the amount of time. Why do oil cleanups take up so long to fix, by the way? We pay oil cleanup companies by the hour, right? So there's not that, X Prize came up with some better technology to solve that problem. Like, here we go. People are like, yeah, the problem is they get paid by the hour to do this. And so no oil cleanup company is really incentivized to clean it up faster. Same with construction projects. If you're a construction company, if you know that there's a better chance you can get this project to last 5 years instead of 2 or 3, not that I'm accusing them of doing anything nefarious or whatever, you're just going to work towards what is your maximum efficiency. Your maximum efficiency is making the most profit. How do you make your most profit in that situation? By spending the most hours on the project and using the most amount of equipment.
Right.
So,
like it's
especially in big projects where safety is the key, right? No one's, the idea that you're going faster for efficiency, but God forbid if there's something wrong and there's an oversight, then now, like, they finished, sure, under budget and ahead of schedule, but now my child's dead.
He brought up a point where people say, well, if there's tunnels underneath, it's going to be noisy. And in typical Musk fashion, he said, well, if you have a means to tell when a tunnel or people are operating through a tunnel that's more than 3 times the diameter of the tunnel width below you, then Israel would love to know about this, and so would the border immigration because of tunneling. and they don't have that technology. He says, if you have that, you'll make a lot of money. And so it's great. You could tell he's had so many cocktail party conversations with the people like, what about this? And then, he brought the flying car thing. Like, there's a lot of people think the future's a flying car. And Elon Musk's point was, it's noise, and that's the big thing. I've had people like, oh, self-driving cars. No, it's be flying cars. I'm like, have you heard a drone? Have you heard a drone? What is it going to sound like when there are thousands of the car-sized ones in the air? It's huge. It's not to say that at some point we might solve that problem, but that's a tech problem we don't know the solution to right now. And Musk says, and what about, are you worried if they're flying overhead? He calls it would not be anxiety reducing having thousands of flying vehicles overhead. Like, what if, did they service their vehicle, or am I about to get decapitated by a hubcap? Which is why I think that, what we talked about, what Uber would talk about with these flight corridors makes a lot of sense. Absolutely makes sense. You're going to be okay falling that way. So.
Yeah, by the way, of all of this news, this is kind of a weird sideways angle to take it, but on Cord Killers, in the beginning, Tom and I were, breathlessly talking about original content for Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime, and then we breathlessly talked about the fact that they were winning Emmy awards and so on. But now we're at the point where it's like the news hits and we barely even register. How great is it that the news this week was, NRO satellite gets launched. Also sticks the landing. I guess, that's a middling, what is this, the 5th, 6th, 7th time?
Yeah, and it's this, oh yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's good. Hey, all right, good
right?
guys, It's like, oh, the footage is great, but it's become, routine, which is what you want, which is what you want it to be, sort of, it happens normally in the way it's supposed to be so many times that you just accept that. But now the conversation shifts to like, is it smart or is it bad? We know we can see the trajectory, literally and figuratively, of where rockets are going between Musk and Bezos. I don't want to discount Bezos and what he's doing, his billion plus a year he's putting into reusability. And I think in the next 2 years, that's going to really become a big deal as we talk about that. And I'm going to segue into our president met with some NASA astronauts, and they talked about like getting to Mars. And he mentioned something about like, because the current NASA plan is sometime in the 2030s to do some sort of Mars mission, but it's not a really laid out plan. Part of it is based on like the SLS rocket technology, which we're not the biggest fans of because it's not reusable. It's prohibitively expensive, costs over $1 billion to launch. And people are like, well, we just need to fund our our Mars program. It's like, and I think our mindset, like, yeah, let's fund one based upon either Blue Origin or SpaceX coming up with reusable rockets, because then it'll be a heck of a lot cheaper. But anyhow, he says, yeah, let's get to Mars. And they said, he said, I mentioned something about like, do we have a plan for getting there? And they said something like, well, long term's like, I would like to see it in my administration, maybe even the first one, the first 4 years.
The first administration, the first 4 years?
The first 4 years.
But the one that is 101 or 2 days old. Yeah, like that. And that's, we can kind of daintily skip over, the speaker, but in general, anybody in a position of power in the federal government saying that this is something, that the quote is, try to do it in my first term, but at worst during my second term. So we'll have to speed up that NASA timeline a bit. Okay. ? It certainly is, regardless of your political affiliation, reflective of the reality on the ground right now. As braggadocious as that sounds, the idea of a faster trip to Mars is something that is feasible, in a way that it hasn't been in forever.
Yeah, we have Blue Origin and SpaceX are furiously working towards developing the technology to facilitate that and reduce the cost of that. Musk brought up, they said that in maybe 6 weeks we'll release more, stuff about the ITS, their next generation rocket system they want to build, which would be capable of that. And I've heard all sorts of rumors and stuff and had some things that were maybe confirmed to me by people who are not realizing they were confirming stuff. But he says our internal deadline is much more aggressive, because they're talking about like an 8-year, trying to get this done in 8 years. Says internally they're much more aggressive, which means he's trying to figure out how to do this much faster. And One of the ways they might try to do that is that if they want to build a big, one of the things he says too, which gets forgotten, is he shows that big, huge rocket that's just like 5 times powerful as, let's say, the Saturn V. Is he goes, and this will look like minuscule compared to the ones we'll eventually be using, which is sort of interesting that he's talking about building even more massive rockets than that, But with SpaceX and the ITS next gen rocket, biggest problem they have is, he wants to build without going bankrupt, is that part of building that would mean building entirely new infrastructures and factories to be able to do that if they're going to use the existing system. So some speculation is that they may be taking the existing SpaceX factories that we have right now and in a couple years' time use those to produce the engines and most of the components for that and just switch over entirely to building the ITS. So,
wow.
Or a different scale one, maybe a smaller ITS, because you tried to do one with the big core, it wouldn't really work to ship that from LA to Florida. But if it were slightly smaller,
that's maybe. Like it's insane that we're already seeing this company kind of turn a generation in its rocket technology. Like that's insane.
I spent a lot of time around young physicist and engineering students, who are in their early 20s, late teens, and they're Elon Musk. They were too young for Steve Jobs, too young to be. Steve Jobs was just some guy they heard talked about when they were a kid. He is their Steve Jobs. He is their Tony Stark, Steve Jobs. He is a guy they look up to, and absolutely idolize the fact that this guy's making things and getting things done. And that's cool to live in an era where we have people doing cool stuff that you can say, man, if this guy's doing this, then maybe the thing I'm doing ain't that hard. Maybe my new toilet paper roll I'm designing isn't the biggest problem.
Maybe this is possible too.
Yeah. So I got one more item before we hop into some other segment. And this is kind of interesting. There was an article that came out that I immediately emailed Matt Ridley. I go, I'm very, very skeptical, but it's still kind of cool and interesting. And what it was, scientists said that they may have found evidence of a human civilization 100,000 years ago, stone tools, dun dun dun, in North America.
Whoa!
So, incredible discovery places humans in California 130,000 years ago. Now, for context, the oldest evidence that we have that we believe is pretty solid is 15,000 years ago. Here are the problems with this, okay? And I'm not saying it's not true or whatever. There are a couple problems with it. One is our evidence for humans even leaving Africa that early is scant because of there was the Great Barrier. There was a lot of issues where we think humans were bottlenecked up there for much longer than that, and it would have been an early exodus. But I'll give you a possibility in a moment here, okay? So that's problem number one, is we have like this almost no evidence of humans even leaving Africa, around that point. Two is the evidence they say they found with mastodon bones and stuff like that, like tools and things like that. Finding tools mixed in with a bunch of really, really, really old bones it's hard to date. It's a very, very, very difficult way to date stuff. And, there could be a lot of possibilities that could explain this that might make more sense because, we're asked to be able to make a number of assumptions to say here. But they found the tools. They say this is the period that's dated. So it's a very valid question of inquiry. And I'll give you one more little aside, and then we can throw it to the discussion here about the viability of this is we get 100,000 years ago, we had an interglacial period right now. Now, as we know, we're what's called an interglacial period. It means we're not really out of the ice age. We're in this period of a warm period, which started about 10,000 years ago. 100,000 years ago, we were in what was called the Eemian period, which was also an interglacial period where the glaciers retreated and it was very warm, maybe warmer than it is today. And we have evidence of some other kind of hominid expansions. We don't have evidence that humans made it out of Africa at that point. But it's possible they did make it out of Africa, small groups, whatever, and they expanded. And then when the Ice Age came back, it could have wiped them off completely while the Neanderthals were like, hey, man, we're cold adapted, sucks for you. So there is a possibility because there was 100,000 years ago a warm period. And I always thought that's an interesting area for fiction because you could have had a Roman-era civilization built in Northern Europe, and then the glaciers would have gone through and sort of reduced you to nothing. And we would be hard-pressed to find any evidence of that now. So,
hold on. Lot to unpack.
Throw it to the table here now.
Yeah.
Lot to parse.
Okay, so first of all, the idea that humans. So the story as I know it is that humans, Neanderthals, both around the same time in largely I guess the I don't know, the Middle East, and then moving into Eastern Europe, and then
No,
making
Neanderthals were there a couple 100,000 years way before us.
Okay.
In Europe.
But how was it that humans were originally the default? What is the default hypothesis here? That we went across the Bering Strait and then or the Aleutian Islands, is that what it is? On Alaska, and then made it down through Canada to modern day North America.
You had, as during the Ice Age, the water level was much lower, right? And it meant coastline was radically different than what you have. So it was entirely possible to walk all the way from Europe into what's Russia now and into the Americas, because there was land. Where we see a bunch of little islands, there was available land there that you could walk across and do that. As the glaciers melted, the water levels rose up, and so you had, it was much more difficult to do that. So we've got this map showing the expansion of humans, and we see humans leaving Africa and going to the Middle East around 100,000, 90,000 years ago. Europe not until 40,000 years ago, which is a very interesting point. The Neanderthals have been living in Europe for 250,000 years before we showed us. And then the contemporary explanation is that we see them going across Eurasia into Asia and then going across. And it's funny because we're looking at a map that shows the world what it looks like today. And that's the big problem, is because that world looked very different even 8,000 years ago. Even 8,000 years ago, what was islands was connected in many places. So we're looking at the spread of when people started going across.
Okay, so humans existing 100,000 years ago, what are the implications of that? I assume, and again, I don't know, but like, is this saying that the idea is that North American humans evolved in a parallel structure, just happened to become human at the same time?
I don't think that's the suggestion at all. I think there may have been an earlier migration that may have died out, because genetically speaking, we would probably have seen that evidence.
Yeah.
There would be haploid groups, things like that. There would be some evidence to that, is my estimation of that.
Okay. So how much credibility do we give this thesis then?
The problem is trying to date things that you find in a pile that you've dated other things is very problematic. It's not like we found tools. We didn't find human fossils that were able to carbon date, which would give us a much better range and expectation. You have different kinds of dating too. That it's one of these things that, like young Earth creationists and stuff will throw this sort of thing. Well, the carbon dating is only good for this kind of dating. Like, yeah, well then we use a different kind of isotopic dating than that one. Some give us broader ranges, some give us narrow ranges. There are hundreds of different ways to date things, within a relatively very predictable way. And when they all tend to match up, you're kind of like, yeah, I think the evidence is pretty strong here. So it's hard. You're just looking at bones. You're just not looking at bones, rather. You're looking at tools, and tools are made of rock, which dating rock, there are sort of things you can do, but even that gets to be really hard. So
what phase of this are we at? They've discovered it. They've made their findings known. They've cataloged it. Like where between now and when do we find out, all right, there's some massive holes in this, or maybe we need to take this more seriously?
It becomes one. They started a discussion. They said, "Hey, we found a thing, and this is from. If we found this and it was 8,000 years old, it wouldn't be a debate. It might be a minor debate. Be like, yeah, no, that makes consistent, whatever, because they're saying it's 100,000 years ago. That's a huge question. So now what you want to do is, one is not a lot of people look for evidence of humans in North America in strata that's 100,000 years old. The same with Europe is you don't spend a lot of time looking for strata and things like that where that could be there, because things have changed considerably. Now you're saying let's look at these things that might have been digging deeper in some locations. What would have been an interesting location in that period? If you think that there was a group of people here in this spot, where else would they have been around there? And you start to extend your search radii. You start from that place there and extend the radii outwards, hoping that you might find bones. And then there's also, now we're finding things that like mud in caves that you can find genetic evidence there, because mud came from somewhere. And so you just extend that outwards and sort of start from here. And then what else?
Dude.
I know, it's fascinating. It's just a fascinating thing. We're digging our tunnels underground to build our mass transit systems for our robot cars. We may find the humans still living there.
Oh my God, dude, how great would that be? That was one of the things that I really loved.
Hi.
The Descent was about pretty much that. The idea that there was a honeycomb network of this is the book, The Descent, not the movie, the same name.
The book sounds great. Peter J. Wax was telling me all about it.
Oh
too.
no, it really. Hold on. We have a gremlin from the underground. What's up, sweetie? What's up?
I really want my backpack.
You want your backpack?
With your backpack?
Okay, hold on. A gremlin just asked me to go get her backpack.
No worries. So I'm going to ask Justin a thing here. When I watched this video and I started thinking about the idea of self-driving cars, is what else can be self-driving? Imagine, like, I went through putting a bunch of stuff in storage, and we talked about the storage thing before. The idea of like the storage, the self-driving storage unit that just pulls up to your place.
Yes.
And you load it into and it goes off. But think about this. You got to entertain a bunch of friends. And you're like, you know what? It'd be great to have a bar and a DJ. Let's just have this mobile unit pull up in front of our house that's got the bar and the DJ in there, or the dining chairs, or whatever else we need.
Man, you want to know what? That's actually brilliant because, there are. Have you been to one of these like container park things?
Yeah.
Like just those, like that idea is always just so brilliant that you can sell these, super high value but tiny little rents that can kind of come and go, and it's optimized for people to build something real quick and then take it right out, and but that to extend that to, like let's just have something kind of like Airstream size that can just sort of like pop out, and here's your party, here's your stage, here's your bar, like boom, and then it can just drive right off.
You could think about like you could have a kitchen. I was thinking about the idea of what if the garage became a docking port for these sort of modular sort of things, so that you have your nice tiny little house, but when you want to like, let's you have a gourmet kitchen tonight come up that we can go prepare some fun food with, whatever, that goes there. The idea of you want to put on a festival, we want to go do weird things-a-thon, and like, you know what, we just need a plot of land to go do this in, and we can tell people want hotel rooms, they just order hotel rooms, and the hotel rooms are self-driving pods that show up with beds inside and rooms there.
Oh man, dude, that would be amazing. Uber for hotel, and it just like drives you to wherever place it is, but it's all oh my god, if there was actually just a hotel room that I could like go and sleep in, and maybe like the shower is like in whatever facility that it's in, but then it'll drop you off wherever you needed to go. You just jump out all tuned up. Oh, that'd be great. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it's been pointed out, like there are companies that will deliver stages and tents and stuff. Yes, that's a thing. That's absolutely a thing. It's an expensive thing. And there's the idea here is when everything gets there are companies that have people that will drive you around in a vehicle called limos and taxis. But once you get rid of the people quotient, or you reduce the cost or increase the efficiencies of it, you start thinking about it very, very differently. If you start thinking about you're stored, like here's the problem with like doing a convention. When you want to do a convention in a city, you've got to make sure there's enough place to eat, there's enough places to eat, there's enough hotel rooms. But when you can make all that entirely modular, where you have, we're going to need 500 hotel units to show up at this area, this convention center, whatever. We're going to have 500 hotel units that are going to show up there. We're going to need, we're going to probably need 30 automated food trucks or whatever. When all that's on demand and robotic, it makes it possible to do pop-up festivals, all sorts of stuff in a simple way. For us, it's simple. It's a very, very neat way to think about, I have a small apartment, and then I can have something come in and dock with my apartment, and with that I can have whatever add-ons I need.
Dude, you are just totally it blew my mind there. Like now all I can think of is all the possibilities, because you're right. There's an occupancy thing. There was a story last week that in Philadelphia, the NFL had their draft, and this also happened when the DNC was there, when I was there covering it for BitTorrent. We had to stay an hour outside of town. When the NFL was there last week, the visiting Miami Marlins who were playing baseball had to stay in Delaware because there was just a capacity problem, right?
Yeah.
And if you have even big things like that, you can have everybody stay in Delaware, but for them, they would just be in Philly, right? You just get into this thing, you're in your car, you're in your room, you're taking care of things, it drives you to wherever it stays, and then next thing you know, boom, you get dropped back off the next day.
Yeah, and there have been examples of interesting ways to take advantage of a place. When I lived in Japan, they had the little micro hotels, which I loved, but it was never really caught on here, whatever, because people want more space, whatever. And that's a place you get when your density gets so high. But Airbnb, we got that and those things like that instead. But when you start thinking about everything being super, super modular, both how it scales, and I think that's going to be the story of the next decade or so. And when you enter in automation and you're not paying somebody to drive that, and that was another thing, by the way, they showed. Did you see the silhouette of the Tesla semi?
No.
So they're developing their own semi truck, and then Elon gleefully described driving it around and how easily it handles. But that's bigging large scale things where you can put them and how they're going to move around. I think it's very, very different. We had this. There was sort of the Neil Stephenson snow crashy kind of future where we're living in storage units and stuff like that, which has been iterated multiple times. I think the idea is that we live you can get in some place you get a small unit with virtual screens, things like that, whatever. But the reality is that you have this modularity of other things that can come in and play and talk with you. I love the idea of I prefer the snow crash version. It's much more realistic. I I love the idea of, I don't prefer living in one of all those sci-fi universes. Their economics always tend to be very skewed, and I don't think they understand how things would likely to play out. But when you think about the idea of I would love to have a Tesla RV.
Sure.
Which would just be like you described, like that. But anyhow, I think it's a very, very fascinating thing to think about. We try to imagine, we see a technology and we try to put our contemporary context into it when it actually changes everything rather dramatically, and then. It's what's the internet going to be in the 1990s? I've been watching some old movies and documentaries in the early 90s about the web. You're yeah, it'll make for this email thing. It's going to be a threat to mail. I see that. And yeah, these internet websites, I could see, catalog printers, are going to have a problem because if I can just go to my catalog and get that. It's yeah, it's not just the catalog printer, but it's Sears and everybody else, because then you get a thing like Walmart possible, and then Amazon, et cetera. So
it's the fabric of reality that will be totally distorted and turned on its head when you can interconnect everything and not just I think my cousin's on one of those. He loves Doctor Who.
Yeah. So Brian, we just sort of went over the idea of once you start making transportation robotic, you can have anything show up at your door. A hot tub that you just borrow for 6 hours, a kitchen that you can do if you want to throw a party. Have
Holy cow! Hold on, you just introduced
bars,
a new,
things like that. Go ahead.
It had, or maybe it hadn't. I've forgotten about it. But the idea of anything other than permanent ownership, the idea of time slice ownership. Wow. It may be so much cheaper to rent a hot tub for I don't know, 3 weeks, and then get rid of it and we'll rent it again whenever we feel like it. That's astonishing.
And it's all on a platform. You think about your house where what your garage becomes, it becomes sort of a docking bay for different modules that go in there. Or things can go in front yard. But if you want to have if you and Bonnie decide you want to have a party, you call a company and, the rentals show up, all the chairs thing, everything else there with, the DJ, with all that automated whatever, shows up in front of your place. It's all there. You want your storage stuff, your storage thing, your this cargo container goes in your garage. You load it up there, close it up. It goes off. You never talk to a human. It's all automated. It goes underground somewhere, wherever. You don't care about it. Like we're paying for cloud storage. It's cloud storage for objects and tools. You want to go work on a project this weekend. You know what? I could really use a good tool shop.
Wow! And all of a sudden, you press a button.
You need to write your near future thriller like that. This is such an amazing, awesome world. This is so rad, and it will be our world. But I feel like it's so rad right now.
Yeah,
well, and keep in mind, like the workshop idea is not that far off, because we already have pod-based storage, right? Where it's it's a half a shipping container that just shows up. So imagine when something strikes you, you spend I don't know, I would guess what, $300 for a weekend. You press a button, you pay $300, and a portable workshop shows up for 72 hours that you're able to create anything you want. And I assume as part of it, you can arrange things how you want, and then press save, basically, so that the next time you reorder that, it might not be the same workshop, but that same, but it will, whatever shows up will have everything arranged exactly the way you left it.
Yeah, I mean, here are the two advantages that come through once we start moving these things around automatically. Is that the two big advantages? One is you're not paying for a person to go this. So I used a couple pods containers. Somebody had to put them on a truck.
Yep.
The woman who did it was amazing. By the way, had a lifter, had to put them on a truck, drive the truck to my place. I loaded them up. Then she had to come take those things, put them back on the truck, then take them to a warehouse and go do that. You have your capital cost, but after your capital cost, your biggest cost is always going to be the price of human labor. That's problem number one, right? So automation reduces that cost. The second advantage you get is when you talk about, like, if I need to borrow tools or I need to do this right now, I can go rent tools from Lowe's or Home Depot, but I need to have a Lowe's or a Home Depot that's 4 or 5 miles away at most for it to be practical. But I still have to go there and do that. But if I have a tool depot or a center where these things are stored that can be 15 miles away, one of the examples of this is, like, you watch movies like LA movies or Hollywood stuff and you see the star trailers, like, the stars going to their trailers.
Star Tours.
Yeah, well, there was Wagoner, like Star Wagons, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was invented by, I think, Robert Wagner, or Robert, let me get the name right. It was the guy who was on Wonder Woman, who was the Steve character. Let me get his name, because he came up with the idea, or he was the guy that started the character, or started the business.
But
and what
basically,
that was.
he recognized that this is a universal demand, and that you could, formalize what
Yeah, it was
gets.
because like, people wanted to have their own little trailers, had this thing, but it wasn't a practical thing because of the fact that studios have limited their space constrained, and if you don't want to have a bunch of these trailers filling up all the space that you're trying to use, and so it was Lyle Waggoner, okay, so Star Wagons, that's where it came from. So what happened was, he said, you know what? If we have if another company owns the trailers and you just order your trailers, say we need 10 trailers for tomorrow, we ship them from some middle and nowhere place where it's cheap to store them, drive them to the set, park them there, leave them there for however long you need, and then when it's time, we come grab the trailers and bring them back. The studio doesn't have to expense the cost of trying to store them, doesn't have to pay for them, whatever. It becomes a rentable thing, and that was a really cool innovation, and you can extrapolate that into automation and stuff and other things, and I think it's a very fascinating sort of future.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what. Basically, what you're talking about is like Uber for things, right? Where it's like it's like I want a wonderful fire pit. I don't want to have to maintain a wonderful fire pit. I don't want to have to set one up. I don't have to build one. I don't have to have the real estate taken up. But tonight I want a fire pit, and I'll pay you $40. You click a button, and then suddenly some drones show up, and sure enough, you have a beautiful chimenea there.
Yeah, and it could be a container that all of a sudden opens up into a larger platform, and that's the thing we could start imagining is like these modular things, something that pulls up in your yard, it unfolds, it's got the deck unfolds, all this is there, the chairs, there's everything there. I mean, it's a crazy thing to think about. Like, well,
and
becomes
plus also like the exciting thing about this thought experiment is that it requires no new innovations. Like everything we've talked about can happen today. It would just be expensive. But once, in a world where Uber took something that was an existing technology, i.e. taxi cabs, and suddenly figured out a way to cut out like 70% of the wasted margin in there, why not? Why not just like there's no experience in the entire life of buying a hot tub better than that first night when you hop in the hot tub and look out at your world anew. And if you could just buy that, it's like buying the last scoop of ice cream or buying, the experience instead of the thing that brings the experience.
Well, think about, the joke, like, what are the 2 happiest days in a boat owner's life?
The day he buys it, the day he sells it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And somebody brought up the subject of tiny homes. There's a lot of other kind of modular homes and stuff. You can start thinking about automation and transportation and fast transportation, like allows us to start building our suburbs 100 miles out. If you're going extremely fast underground, whatever, you can build your suburbs much further out than you have before. And then if you have all these conveniences you need, and you can have you've gone to like food truck festivals, right? You could totally artificial food truck festivals or pop-up shopping malls. And it's just a totally, when we start, we know the next big wave, or we feel the next big wave is treating atoms like we treat bits.
Yeah.
And routing them and moving them through. And we're seeing that incrementally right now. And that's going to progress into just a crazy, amazing future. Somebody says, do you really want to use a hot tub that some strangers have been and never been to a hotel?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah. No. Only way more sanitary because they won't carry the water from the previous owners to you. They'll fill it with new, fresh water.
For an extra service fee.
Sure.
Went to dirty. If you would, that'd be the Lyft versus Uber version. Uber dirty. Gentlemen. I guess that's it. I think that's about wrapped up here.
Hell no.
Hold on. I
Yeah.
seem to remember last week we left on a bit of a cliffhanger because in our fantasy journey of Journey Quest, nothing happened.
So we do a thing called Journey Quest where Brian and Justin are on a journey. It's a very clear linear plotline story. We actually had a recap sent to us. I don't know if Bryce has that queued up or not, but there is a recap.
On
Johnny Quest!
Stan!
Oh, and then all of a sudden the axe comes down on you.
Oh!
Is this a late season Sopranos episode?
Hey man, did you ever? Was that a dream when we died?
All right. I
wait,
say,
hold on. I look at the hemline of the skirt as a clue as to what decade we may or may not be in.
Sure, that's why you do it.
As
So-
always, the recap very effectively places us in our current dilemma, which, of course, is in the middle of what appears to be a time travel paradox. We have shown up in a bunker, and as we look forward, we see a beautiful blonde-haired woman and a
I wouldn't
mustachioed
say
man.
beautiful, but
Hey, man.
Although I do hope that as whoever's doing these, number one, thank you for putting the time and effort into doing them. Number two, I hope that this winds up getting to the point that like many shows that take complicated plot turns where there's always just going to be one clip that's in the front of all of them that just explains one particularly tricky, like, we're here on Mars. Like, you ever like binge watch a show? There's always like the one clip up front that's just like, Joe's dead for 8 episodes, just so everybody always remembers that Joe's dead.
Yeah.
So you guys were you hopped back. You were had your heads cut off, whatever, as far as you thought. Time machine jerks you forward, and next thing you know, you're back inside of the time machine oven situation. You burst out of it, and you realize you're not where you started from. You're in a totally different location. You run up the stairs. There was a man sitting at a desk who told you to wait a moment. You see a woman. She nods you. They treated this as the most natural thing in the world that you showed up there. And then he turns. The woman and him turn around to greet you as you're sitting there eating strudel. And we flashed the picture of who it was before that you saw. The smiling, charming couple that provided you some nice pastries and desserts.
They look sweet. They
Who is
look
this?
like our sweet neighbors. Also, one's Hitler and the other's the shit
Braun.
that Hitler banged.
Ava, whatever, Braun.
Braun.
With his Hitler in his zoot suit.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. One moment. Can I talk to Justin for just a moment?
Yes, sure. Go talk.
All right, Justin.
Ava, we gonna have business in a moment. Please carry on and go in the other room. I'm gonna
Okay.
sit down at my
Good.
desk
Good.
again.
All right, Justin. Number one, like between you, me, and the wall, how
Yeah.
much do I have to pay you to just shave down that mustache, just a little bit on each side? Because I'm thinking you could replace this dude and maybe change the legacy of Hitler forever.
That went so well last time.
because I'm looking at you.
One.
You got the tie.
Pause. Yes, I'm dressed like Hitler. And yes, if I shave my mustache, I would look more like Hitler.
Yeah,
okay?
like real close, real close.
This is known. We know this as a fact, okay? That being said, I think we already tried the let's replace a leader gambit thing once.
Okay, all right.
That didn't
All right.
go so
He's
well.
like, all right, gentlemen, he speaks very loudly. All right, I am not to be disturbed. I am going to be speaking to my friends for the next hour. All right.
Great. Okay. So, all right. Look, he's coming back. I'm sorry. Okay. So obviously, okay. So what do we do? We do a chokehold? Do we grab him by his one ball or?
Walking over now. He's coming over to sit down.
Before we immediately take action that involves death, Brian, can we at least get our bearings on where we are and what the situation
Hitler's
is?
sitting down
You're
in
right.
front of
Let's
you.
give
You guys
him.
are
Let's give him a
whispering to each
chance.
other.
I stand up and I'm like, "Hello, mein Führer. I understand that you probably have brought us here for a reason. We're very honored. And while I personally wanted to kill you on sight, my colleague Justin insisted that we hear you out. He said, if I recall correctly, he said he's probably got some good ideas. So let's hear it, Hitler."
All right. So Hitler just sort of chills back, relaxes a bit, takes off his shoes, pulls off his socks. He's like, my feet, they hurt so much. He's speaking kind of loud, right? And then he puts a finger to his lips, reaches over to the side of his big stuffed chair, opens up a little box, pulls out a lighter, pulls out a joint, lights it, takes a big, deep breath.
I casually hold my hand out in like a peace-like symbol.
He hands you this, right?
I hand it immediately to Justin.
All right. He looks over his shoulder and he goes, all right. Been waiting for you guys to show on up.
I got to admit, Mr. Hitler, you seem a lot more relaxed than history had led us to believe.
It is new accent.
Yeah, man. This Hitler thing. Oh boy, I had no idea what I was in for. Waiting for more travelers like you.
Wait a minute. All right. So,
He's
can
speaking
we
in
just
kind of a
establish some
Texas
facts?
accent, by the way. What's that?
Number one, you are indeed the Hitler. Number two,
no. All right. I mean,
wait,
I've had
let me
explained this
ask
before.
you questions. So, history believes, the world believes that you are the Hitler, and yet you are not. You are a fellow time traveler that has taken the role of Adolf Hitler.
That's right, man. I came back in time. I come from a future where the world was very, very different than what it was, and I wanted to stop a horrific event from happening. See, I'm from Texas, and I had two choices in life. I could either become a physicist or an actor, but I thought nobody ever be able to pronounce Matthew McConaughey.
No way!
So I got into
No way!
physics.
Oh my
And,
God, this is your greatest role ever.
So anyhow, point is I decided to try to change history, change it for the better, and try to do what I could. So I came back in time, and I did it. Came this gentleman right before you right now.
Well,
Okay.
number one,
Brian?
Justin, if I may. First of all, Mr. McConaughey, number one, I don't know if you remember, you met my wife once. She was a framer at a framing shop.
Hitler. But, yeah.
Okay, great. Number two, I feel like you were unfairly
Your
maligned.
wife takes a big, long smoke. Go on.
All right. Number three, Mr. McConaughey, what have you managed to change, and what's the same?
Well, some progress. These things take time, but I'll have you know that Boris is dead. First thing I did when I came back in time is I killed Boris. And you know how everybody says, if you could kill Boris, would you do it? Well, I killed Boris.
Who's Boris?
Exactly.
We're in a post McConaughey world.
Yeah. You're saying that everything we know is
better
because
than Boris.
there was a badder person than Hitler, and it was Boris.
Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. So, Matthew McConaughey, number one, before or after Lincoln Lawyer?
You can call me McConaughey Hitler. It's fine.
Okay, McConaughey
Lincoln
Hitler.
Lawyer.
Did you start time traveling before or after you did the film Lincoln Lawyer?
Oh, no. Whoa, I'm an actor. Where you from?
Oh, awesome. Okay.
I'm the celebrated physicist from my future.
Oh my goodness, Matthew McConaughey! I never knew you had this in
Matthew
you.
McConaughey is in a world where
Yeah, my coworker Dolph Lundgren, he and I, put together our Advanced Particle Physics Institute, decided if we could do one thing, it would be better off to save humanity to help prevent the biggest tragedy of the 20th century, and that would be to kill Boris, and that's what we did.
All right, and forgive me,
Okay,
my memories are a little
Boris,
bit hazy.
listen,
remind me what was it Boris did?
Boris
Yeah, and
was the
also-
worst.
also-
Boris was like the worst you can imagine. Sorry, Hitler Jr., go ahead.
Hitler. I'm just going to set the line at 6 million. We going over or under on Boris? How many?
16 million what?
No, 6 million. How many people did Boris kill that you had to come back and stop? I'm setting the line at 6 million. Did he go over or under?
Oh, well, there's a lot between the wars he started and the genocide and that sort of thing. I think it was like 5,999,099.
Bad news.
Yeah.
Bad news, Mr. McConaughey Hitler. Mr. McConaughey Hitler.
What?
Well, you might be in our timeline, the timeline that you're in right now, the reality that you've entered. I don't know how far along we are, but we know
So
that
point it was Boris. What we did was I was like an ambulance driver. Well, Hitler was in World War I, and we knew Boris was a Russian soldier walking along, and we knew what road he was. So I just took that little ambulance, and I did a little bit of swerve, and the next thing you know, no more Boris. Future saved. Thank you.
Hold on. So you're saying you killed or Boris? Oh, geez.
6 million people
the question,
are dead.
I mean, of course, a regular question
That
is,
makes 6 million.
If you that's 6 million. If you could have if you could kill baby Boris, would you? And he obviously waited a little bit longer than a baby, but
Okay,
flipped
listen.
him.
There's just so you know, we appear to be from different timelines. There are some people who have asked us if there's a way to have stopped you from not appearing in season 2 of True Detective, and if killing you would somehow prevent that future from happening.
Now, I recognize the words you're saying, but I don't think I understand what you're saying.
Okay, Matthew McConaughey Hitler. What year is it right now?
1943.
That's like a while before the nuke dropped, right?
I'm not up on my World War. Are we currently in a world war, Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah, we definitely
Yeah,
are.
it's a little messy right now. Part of what it is the machinations of stuff and the way it works when you go back into somebody. Sometimes they do the things they're gonna do, kind of thing. And this guy, this Hitler fellow. Let me tell you what, man.
All right, real quick, Mr. Professor McConaughey. How did you get here? Did you develop your own time travel technology? Do you have the ability to go back to your own timeline?
Well, it was more of a drug because Dolph is a chemical engineer.
And are you just gonna live out the rest of your life here, or are you
No,
planning
to make sure things work right, and this is the way I stay here. And he takes another puff.
Okay, real quick. If you could outline for us like the 3 core tenets of your dictatorship.
Guys, I'm not here to talk politics. Not here to talk politics. I'm just here to tell you, enjoy the eagle's nest, enjoy the strudel. Problem is solved. Problem is solved. It's no Boris.
Okay, so I got a real good news, bad news here for you, Matthew McConaughey Hitler. Number 1, bad news. If you had lived your life as an actor, you could have done way better than Eva. I mean, she's like a 2 compared to where you're playing
Hold
right
on.
now.
I pause just a moment. Excuse me, Matthew. Let me take a gander at your misses. Let's take a little look-see here. Ooh, you got to agree with Justin. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you were a insurance salesman in Minnesota, I think you would have done real nice. But you're not. You're a dictator of the most powerful European country.
Hey, by the way, though, good news. We've never even heard of Boris. Boris never exists in our timeline. You have successfully eliminated somebody that killed
5,999,999 people. Yeah.
Plus Boris.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some more bad news?
Yeah, real quick. Let me just check in. How do you feel about homosexuals?
How? I mean, in what context?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure right now you're rounding them up and throwing them into death camps.
I don't get into the minutia of what people do around here. Politics not my thing. It's the 1940s.
What about Jewish people? How do you feel?
Oh, they're great. Love them. Love.
Okay,
them.
why make them wear the thing and go to the places?
Have you
Well,
gotten
that
a
wasn't
report?
exactly my idea, but the way that was explained to me was that they have been the victims of prejudice, and we need to be able to protect them. And in order to protect them, you got to see who you're supposed to protect.
Oh my goodness! Just one moment, you're my Fuhrer, Justin.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows what's going on.
Yeah, you think? He gets high on space weed all day so he can stay in this current
Okay,
form.
but
There's
also
a knock on the door.
It's real.
Guy in a sharp Nazi uniform mops in. Says, Führer, I have some more papers for you to sign. Some more of our healthiness and our cleanliness, sort of our hygiene project. Guys, hold on a second.
No.
Gustav, you're not going to tell them about this, right? Don't tell them about this. Guys, I'm just going to sign this thing right now.
Real quick, my Führer, real quick. As your most trusted advisors, which I can only...
German, that's the problem.
I would assume we are, since you went all the trouble through teleporting us through time and space, allow the guy who looks like almost identically to you with a slightly larger mustache to explain why this might not be a good idea.
Almost identical. Okay. So here's the deal. There's one thing you from Texas really appreciate.
I'm like, points to the Nazi.
From Austria.
Yeah.
That's what we
Austria.
call
Austria.
the neighborhood that we all came from. Texas, Austria.
Tex
It's
Austria.
an old world thing. You wouldn't understand. Here's what you appreciate is a more streamlined government. So I got a few budget cuts. I've looked over the books. Here's some things that we can defund immediately. I'm just going to name a couple things. We can just start cutting funding to those. No more. In fact, everybody who's there, send them on home. No need to be out there. Totally useless. Just Auschwitz, Birkenau, Dachau.
As our slogan as a shared populace is keep Austria weird, right? So let's do that.
So that's what I think we should be doing immediately is just cut line item cuts. No new camps. Too much money.
Gentlemen, I'm going to have to look into these things. Again, I don't get in the minutia. Be honest, ever since I killed Boris, I've just been sort of either drunk or high most of the time, celebrating the fact that I saved the world.
Okay, well, first of all, in our timeline, it's
has that party gone on? Like we have literally been doing this for like up to a decade and a
one
half?
of parts of my rise to power was I legalized weed in Germany.
okay, but
That's something that the history books don't remember.
what they do remember, the history books do remember, you did a lot of meth. You kind of are known as the meth dictator. Is that how you want to go down?
I invented some new technologies, some new stuff. So anyhow, boys, I'm saying it's nice of you to visit, but you can go on home. It's all taken care of here.
All right.
So
Can I have a moment to sidebar with my colleague, Justin?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in my grow room, go check on it.
All right.
We have to kill Matthew McConaughey, right?
Wait, how does that do anything?
Well, I mean, like you just
He's
shave
totally
off.
cut out. He's totally cut out from the situation. It's people below him that are making these decisions.
He's not interested in fixing anything. I'm just saying, if we killed him and you shaved the sides of your mustache,
No, I am not assuming the role of Hitler.
I'm just
no,
saying.
No,
Okay.
absolutely not. 100% no.
Okay, but you could save like, I don't know, a dozen lives. It sounds like he's already on track to kill as many as Boris did. I mean, it's like, what's the point? At least we'll have the chance to steer the fatherland into its proper place in history.
Okay, well, number one, the fatherland is very troubling nomenclature when we're talking about non-Nazi things. Number two, no, we are not killing that. We can't solve every problem with killing the sovereign. We keep running into these sovereigns. We need to figure out a way that doesn't involve killing people.
Okay, at
or
the very
me shaving down
Hold
my
on,
mustache.
hold
on.
on,
Wait,
gentlemen. I got
stop.
a phone call. Oh, he's here. He's here. All right. Send him right in. Hey, Winston Churchill's coming in here.
Wait, you're friends with Winston
But
Churchill?
you'll never guess who he actually is. Next time on Journey Quest.
Oh shit! Pretty good. Pretty good.
Renegade. All right.
So anyhow, next time on Journey Quest, we're going to find out how different is this world that Matthew McConaughey shaped for us by going back in time and killing our number one enemy of the 20th century, Boris.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's great. That's good.
So, gentlemen, do we have any picks?
Yeah, man. I'm going to pick Stars, American Gods, which if you have Stars, you're able to preview it before its official premiere. It's based on the Neil Gaiman work. It's got Ian McShane from Deadwood fame as the fantastic Mr. Wednesday. There are a number of things that are slightly different from the book, but I'll be damned if it wasn't hypnotic and strange and wonderful. And keep in mind, this is coming from somebody who read the book. There's giant chunks that I don't understand what is happening, and I'm really excited for that to be the case.
You listen to the book, Brian. You listen to the book.
Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
I love being that guy to you. I love being that guy.
I have fully
I
experienced the book to the author's deepest intent. How about that?
I am going to pick Veep on HBO. I thought last season was a little uneven. This season, I've not watched the episode last night, but the first episode was amazing. Back to top form. It finds our main character, Selena Meyer, who previously was vice president and president, now out of the White House and dealing with what it's like to be an ex-president. It's awesome. It puts all the characters at their best, which is at their breaking point of humiliation. It's amazing.
My pick is it's on Netflix now. I've watched this before. I think it's an extremely well done movie. It is a very nuanced movie that I beg anybody who saw it the first time and may have been left a little bit with it, go watch it again and maybe go a few months later watch it again just to pick up on all the little details, because it is very much a movie that is in layers, and you have to watch it. You have to watch it again to appreciate the layers, and each time you watch it, you pick up more on it. And that is The Prestige.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I loved it enough in the theater that I watched it twice in the theater, and then seeing it a second time like 2 or 3 years later, there are a number of small details that you pick up that it's so well crafted.
So The Prestige is the story about two rival magicians played by Batman and Wolverine, while Black Widow is also has an assist there, and Alfred is present too. So it's
a curious piece of fan fiction, The Prestige.
Yeah.
They are hated by the Goblin King.
Yes, and King Kong, and you look through that list of like, oh my God, who was and Gollum,
and Piper Paraboo.
Yeah. So, but it's a great cast, amazing, typical. I mean, really good Christopher Nolan. Things are told out of sequence, and you sort of put it together. And then the tale of the rival magicians, and then you get to the end. The first time through, there's two twists there that are kind of like rechange the context. But when you watch it, knowing those twists, and you watch it again, you don't lose anything by that payoff. It actually enhances it, because then you're aware of, oh, what I thought were two storylines are actually. The second time through, you think about it like, oh, I'm watching 3 storylines. And then you watch it again, and you kind of think about the fact that, like, oh, my God, I'm watching, like, a bunch of storylines.
Yeah.
and just an incredibly complex. And that's a movie you could do a whole podcast on it, just talking about just what made that so special. And there's little things in there too, little nuances. Now, the book that it was based on was The Prestige. I think it was Christopher Priest wrote that book, and I thoroughly enjoyed the book. But the book is very different. The book is told from contemporary times, and this woman who's the daughter of who we'll say was the great and a descendant of the Anton character, and the Danton character, and finding these journals and this sort of stuff, and then finding, hidden in this mausoleum are the Prestige materials, and uncovering what's going on and what that is. And so you could read the novel as almost a sequel to it. So if you wanted to have a kind of interesting audiobook, it's kind of a weird sort of thing. You watch the Prestige, then you read the book, and you kind of know what's going on, but it's a very cool unfolding of that. Very well done. Very well done. So it's my pick.
Very cool.
Yeah. And a lot of the themes in the book, like the book has much more of this kind of horror kind of tone to it in a way that the movie is focuses on other elements. They're both exceptional. Everybody should watch and read them immediately.
Yeah, the book is a very different experience. It tells the story from a different point of view, so it's kind of cool. Gentlemen, all right. It's been weird.
See ya.
All right. Use the restroom.
Alrighty. Yeah, we'll do some after things in a minute.
I have my heart out at 2, so the sooner we can turn around into after things, the better.
Okay. You need to use the restroom, Brian?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Brian's like, if I walk out, then I might not be able to walk back in.
I mean, I'm just saying she's out there. I'm just saying right now is safe. Everything's fine. Let's just keep on.
Yeah. But yeah, coming up next, After Things. I finally got this graphic to work. I messed it up the last week, and it was all black because I had changed it for the previous graphic. So all the effects stayed on it and it's super dark. But
which one? The scrolling thing?
yeah, the chat
bottom
one
third?
down here.
Yeah, looks good.
Thanks. I kind of want to go in and update all the cover art and all the music intros for all this stuff too.
So have you followed some of this Fire Festival stuff here, Brian?
Remind me of it again. I think I poked in on.
It's a YouTube channel where a family plays pranks. Just kidding.
So this is
a festival that's supposed to be a luxury festival.
Oh yeah. It was a tire fire, basically. Basically, they had high-end tickets. Everybody showed up, and then they didn't have sufficient ability to deliver things like water and food and fundamental essentials.
Tents, artists backed out.
Yeah.
So
but they did give away a 2012 Kia Soul. That's the exciting part.
It's funny. Somebody was like, "Oh, did the guy who did your Orlando New Year's Eve event do this?" And I'm like, to be honest with you, I would not be shocked if
Not
you
at
were
all.
involved somewhere.
Not at all.
$100 million lawsuit incoming to the organizers of the festival, because it turns out when you cater a tire fire festival to rich millennials, you're going to find one or two of them that are sons and daughters of lawyers, apparently.
Yeah.
All right. I don't want to interrupt this, but if we have a heart out, then let's jump right in.
Ready.
All right, take it away in 3, 2.
Welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Justin Robert Young.
Well, hello.
And Brian Brushwood.
That's a fact. You could take it to the bank and say, this is a fact. And the teller will say, I'm sorry, do you have any business transactions you'd like to make?
And why are you doing all this free for association rapping, sir? That's just not acceptable here.
Correct.
Gentlemen, I have a thing that I thought about talking about before, which is there was a talk about, I think it was Steve Martin, I think, had a conversation. I think it was with Johnny Carson once, and Carson was sort of talking about the idea of how you develop all these little skills, let's say as an entertainer, little bits of magic, little bits like this. And then when you've got to be doing a bunch of episodes of shows or a bunch of episodes of stuff, how you end up using everything. You end up the little skills, the little thing like that, you end up using it. And that was something Steve Martin, the magic and everything, you end up using everything. That something comes back, some skill, something you acquired early on. Outside of show business, I've seen that. I'll give you an example of something that is I started doing years ago and just developing skills at, and I would not call myself pro level at this at all. I would not put myself on the status of somebody who does this on a daily basis. But when I need to, my Photoshop skills are pretty good. My Photoshop skills in a compositional point of view are pretty good. And, things that I've done, I've had stuff like, I've had some of my book covers, other publishers that they've done re-releases. They've used the stuff I've designed, because it worked well enough, it was pro level, whatever. And I've had stuff, I've worked on pitches and things like that. And it's been an evolution. It started from when I first started writing magic books and I needed to do images. I started playing around in Photoshop and playing a little bit more, and then evolving over time and doing DVD covers, and doing the DVDs was really when it came into play, and understanding the concept of composition, which is a very basic idea. But if you've never been in that world or the design world, so many things that are obvious to you are totally opaque to an outsider like myself. And after a while, I learned like, oh, that's what I'm doing, is I'm doing composition. I'm learning how to blend things, make them fit together. That's why Match Color does this. That's why this does that. And I'd never sat through like a full Photoshop tutorial until much later on. But years later, I found out those Photoshop skills were great in TV. When I wanted to go pitch a TV show or whatever, I could put together, 12-page booklets with really nice looking artwork. When I started publishing my own books, I could turn around a cover in less time than it would take me to explain to a designer what I needed to do. And so Photoshop was certainly one of these skills that's had a lot of benefits over time that just keeps coming back and useful to me. And I can think of a few others, but I'd be curious to hear, like, what's that thing, that skill, that thing that you picked up and you said maybe sometime it was just spending a weekend to learn how to do it, but later on it's turned into being, a lifetime asset.
Well, before I delve into my own soul and figure out what it is I did that matches that criteria, I could definitely attest to the fact that that some of the gods of Hollywood have had those exact same experiences. The opening title credit sequence to Lost was created by J.J. Abrams on his own computer using either Softimage, I think, or Lightroom, or no, Lightroom is the
photography.
Yeah, that's photography. Maybe it was Softimage or 3D Studio Max or something. But basically,
After Effects,
you can actually see some artifacting that is the result of shoddy workmanship. But he knew enough about the mood he wanted to convey that he put it in there. As a matter of fact, we're watching it right now. If you look, you'll be able to see a border that breaks the barrier. And you'll see artifacting. Oh man, is that the original one, or is that?
I don't know. This is
okay. So basically,
simple,
as you see the zoom in on Lost, it's all out of focus, and then at some point you'll be able to see like some black marks along the O or the S as it gets into focus, and there's artifacting on there. Like, it's a broken title sequence, but it was exactly what he wanted, or close enough to it, and he sent it over and said, "Hey, can you take a look at this? This is what I want." And then, there you go. And sure enough, they ended up just running with it.
And Abrams is famous for his ability to get things done. You watch, let's say, the first Star Trek movie, and you see the opening scene with the kid or Kirk when he like steals the car or whatever. When the kid is like looking up at the cop or whatever, the space cop, whatever that's supposed to be, that was shot on top of a parking garage. They had to grab a shot. They grabbed a camera, or Larry Fong, whatever. They ran outside. There was like 3 people there, whatever. They shot that there. When there's scene with like Kirk and Pike in a bar talking, they needed to get some extra shots, but that set was already gone. So they have a viewing theater at his production company at Bad Robot. They just built the bar. They built all that inside of their theater in their production. This is not a studio. This is a post-production house, essentially. They went and they shot that there. And so he's very, very good at improvising on the spot, and working with his team to say, how do we get this? How do we get this quickly and do that? So he's, as a filmmaker, writer, a guy who just understands the basics of film mechanics, it's been an asset that's helped him a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, Brian. Do you have anything that kind of fits into that? Maybe.
The closest.
I can name. some skills that I've seen in you guys that I think that it's overlooked. Okay.
Oh, this will
Let
be
me
good.
point-
Yeah,
I'm
go
gonna
for it.
Point it out. So Brian, you've made a lot of your own magic projects. You've made your props. You've made your stuff like that. Would that have been, what would Modern Rogue be like if you hadn't done that?
Oh man. Yeah, dude. Monorogue has a really weird procedure to show up. It's like there's a lot of very much in the moment. For example, last night we shot a thing on taking styrofoam, mixing it with acetone to create kind of a plastic, and use that to shape a knife. It is astonishing when you think with the magician's mind in terms of like, okay, I need to spread a gooey, sticky substance over another thing. What's my best options? And you just look around the room, and that comes out of 10 to 15 years of touring to colleges, where every single time, you don't necessarily have this stuff that you expected to have for any one event, but you know that you need some object about waist high to set a thing on so that you can do the fire eating routine. I mean, all of that comes, I guess, yeah, really from instinctually from experience, right?
Yeah, you acquire a bunch of these little skill sets that your production values are fantastic. I speak more highly of you behind your back than in front of you, just so you know.
Good.
Your Modern Rogue, all that's amazing, but a lot of this thing is you're do-it-yourself guy. You have a certain knowledge set that you do this. You wouldn't necessarily call yourself a master carpenter, but you need to build it, you need to do this. And so a lot of the things you've been doing are based upon the fact like, oh, I can build this. If I need to build this, then I'll just go build that. I'll go do that. You need to get this, you need to get that done. And I think that a lot of times it's like you spent the time to learn how to do this. And in your idealized version of your future, probably when you learned to build some things for Magic, it wasn't like you were thinking like, well, 10 years later, I'm going to want to use this skill in a different way to even think about doing a show that's going to be a lot of cool hacks and tricks and stuff. But also my knowledge of building things or working with tools is going to play a factor in that.
Yeah. You're 100% correct when you say that it's not the intention going into it. But also, I mean, when you have the pressure of the gig being in 30 minutes and it causes you to pull farther and farther back, where it's like, do I care if it's a table? No, I don't care if it's a table. Do I care if it looks nice? No, I don't even care if it looks nice. Eventually you pull back far enough. You're like, what is it I need this thing to do? You're like, I need it to have the Mr. Happy Pants house at about waist level and something that I can physically move forward at this part of the show. And then all of a sudden, under that new criteria, you look at everything around you differently and you realize that recycling bin over there, my guess is if I pulled the bag out, flipped it upside down, set it by my side, it would now fit this criteria. And then under that new lens, you're able to, pull off and hit everything the way you intended it to.
And I'll tell you what, if I had a dime for every time that I figured out how to create a well lit place to do podcasts from a hotel room, like that was, I mean, a very, very specialized skill. But certainly in that vein, just the idea of like, okay, well, what do I need to do Night Attack or Weird Things from my iPhone wherever, right? And
sure.
It's like, okay, well, LTE by the window is going to be better and more reliable. Find the ice bucket, you can unplug and move around these lamps or whatever that's going to be at the different angles to light me evenly. And now all of a sudden it looks like, well, people can see my face over the internet as opposed to it just being, some sort of dark hostage video.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned this at some point in the past, but especially in the early 2000s, back when they were prevalent. But like, there's a big difference between front lighting on stage and down lighting. Down lighting feels like you're in a lecture hall. Front lighting feels like you're watching a theater production. And in the cases where they didn't have front lighting, I would look around and I was like, hey, do you guys have overhead projectors? And you know what I mean? Those things where it's like you could write with a dry erase or wet erase marker. Yeah, transparency projector. And so I just would cut out a circle in a piece of poster board, set it on there, and then all of a sudden you turn on two of those and it's two spotlights on you in stage, and wow. It feels like an actual production at that point.
That's brilliant. So Justin, I'll point out a couple with you. If you hadn't podcast or developed that skill, there probably would have been no Go Game, which you work for.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Justin, the straight out of J school kind of guy, probably not the you could have done your Go game, I'm sure, but you were.
I mean, the thing that kind of picked up at a necessity that really helped me with the Go game was the lecture tours. And that was something where Andrew was at a point. I forget what really was the spark that kind of lit that, but all of a sudden we had it where we wanted to do lecture tours and figuring out, calling people, setting them up, figuring out what the money was for each of them, budgeting out, what the hotel situation would have to be, figuring out what the drives would be in between each and every city, figuring out where we're going to fly in and where we're going to fly out of, if we're going to try to tie a convention or something into it. Like, that was something that hugely benefited me and was a massive asset in terms of getting hired with the Go game, was that kind of stuff didn't scare me. Like, I had done it a bunch of times, and I'd done it with, a two-man operation. So it wasn't, my money specifically, but it was effectively my money in terms of, budgeting out and estimating what we were going to make in each and every city. So that was huge. And that's something that's continued to go, because I've, it was the reason why I was able to do the In Your House tours for the Jury podcast. It's the reason why I went out to Iowa and New Hampshire to plug The Contender, and those were largely the reasons why I got on BitTorrent. So yeah, no, everything kind of connects, but those lecture tours, really doing that kind of nitty gritty stuff that I had really no background in. I had no background in planning a tour, but that was a huge thing, and it's something that I feel comfortable that if I spun that up into another kind of business, I definitely I could do that. There's no reason why I couldn't, especially with the Go game experience.
It's sometimes things are worth doing just because the experience you're going to pick up doing it that will apply somewhere else. And that's one of the things I love. We've talked about this before. Scott Adams said in his book on how to get things done sort of book. I always I think how to fail at everything was, he talked about the skill is sort of, think about, it's not literally true, but think of the idea that skills multiply. If you have one skill here, another skill that relates, that increases. And two skills, I'll give you the three most important skills I think somebody can learn outside of some sort of pure technical skill. One is learning how to write and communicate, how to get the idea in your head articulately across on paper or print, to express yourself the way you need to and should express yourself. We all get emails from people like, I don't know what they're saying. They don't know what to ask. It's a very meandering kind of thing because their thoughts are unclear and the email's unclear. Learning how to articulate yourself in it clearly in an email. I'm not talking about grammar, but just clearly what you're trying to communicate, understanding what they'll get, what they won't. That's number one. Learning how to public speak, how to speak in front of a group of people without being nervous or anxious. Learning how to do that is very, very key. And it's not just being willingness to go and speak in front of people, but it's also knowing what not to do. Like, some people have no problem getting in front of people, but they go on stage, the bright lights are there, and then all of a sudden they're like putting their hands in front of their eyes, trying to, like, can you turn down the lights? And it's like, okay, why are you doing that? You don't need to do that. If you need to see your audience, yelling at somebody at the control board's not the way to do it. You step off the stage and walk into the audience. But learning little techniques like that, how to speak just in a room in front of a group of people and present. I have a friend that puts on these startup meetups, and I go to these, just if they're fun to hang out and talk to people. The number of times I talk to some startup founder who's paid several $100s to go pitch in front of a VC or whatever like this, and I ask them to articulate what they do, and they cannot tell me what they do because they just have not thought it through.
Yeah.
Is more often than not. Is they're just, it's this thing, we're an e-commerce platform, digital sort of thing, and it's like, you're saying those words because you've heard other people say them and you think it makes you sound cool and like you're doing something, but you're doing, one guy said, yeah, we're like, we're a digital platform, that's everything in the world now. That is everything in the world now. What do you do? And the inability to articulate is problematic. So those are two. And the third is networking. And networking, the idea of not networking from the point of view of I'm just going to meet people so I can ask for things, but meeting people to understand what other people's capabilities and what other people's needs are. What are other people's needs? Because that's when you become a very useful node in culture and society. When you're a person that people know, I'm going to call Andrew because he probably knows somebody who can set me up with this. I'm going to go to Andrew because of that, and you knowing who to go to for that. And the more you've reinforced those connections for other people, the stronger you are. It's just like your brain and neurons and memory and network systems. It's absolutely the same thing. The more active you are in participating in other systems, the more you're going to be included, the more you're going to be referred to. And
Yeah.
you do that by providing services for other people by understanding what their needs are. Could be one person A needs a job, person B needs that person's skill set. And if you know those two people and you put them together, you're valuable.
Right. Well, and I think that that's one of the things that gets lost in people's vision for, accelerating their path to success. Like, no matter what it is you do, if you're an independent person, and let me ask, if I phrase it this way, do you want to be the MVP of 2017 to all of your peers and colleagues? The answer, everybody would be like, yeah, of course. It's like, well, guess what? The recipe is baked into the name. If you want to be the most valuable player, the most valuable person, then what you need to do is become valuable to other people. And I think it's totally apocryphal, but it's said that somebody asked Einstein, what is the purpose of man? What is the purpose of life? And Einstein allegedly said, well, obviously to serve. And that is exactly the mentality you need to have, is how can I be valuable? How can I be the most valuable person to the most number of people out there? And once you start thinking that way, it's astonishing what you're able to uncover.
I met a gentleman last week who was one of the early hires for Tesla, and his job was hiring. And I geeked out because that is, in an organization, in a growth organization, that's an extremely critical point. Is it's not just how many people you can get in the door, how many qualified people to do, and do you know where to go for this? And that is, I've had, early on, I'd get jobs doing some of the work that I got working for other magicians was because I had a reputation as somebody. Ask Andrew this, he will find it. He'll figure out who has it or where to get it or come up with a solution. He won't say, no, it can't be done or whatever. He'll just figure it out. And that's helped me get in the door in a lot of places. And it just comes from, you just say, okay, it's not, oh, I don't know the answer to it. It's like, how would I find the answer to that? And when it comes to networking or people, if you're trying to hire, it's not just, I'm going to look at a bunch of resumes. It's like, how do I qualify this? If I know other people and I know who's at this company or I know who's talented or who's skilled there and I know the questions to ask, then you have an amazing skill set there. So that's, and that ability, like, that's why headhunters and people who work in, human resources at high levels are such important acquisitions, because that is just, it's not a matter of, we'll just wave money. It's, you can get people to show in the door who everything looks right on paper, but are they good? Are they a good fit? And that's hard to know.
Yeah.
But anyhow.
Totally.
Do you want to jump into picks?
Yeah, I'm just finishing the one thing, which by the way, traveling around, I went up to Canada this week, and one of the random bookstores at the airport happened to have the one thing on display there, and so I guess I didn't realize what a big phenomenon it was, but it's certainly good. It certainly kicked me in the balls in just the right way that we're making a lot of stuff happen.
Did you grab it off the shelf and stomp on it and say, I only listen to you?
Yeah. Like, printed word sucks. Ah! I started shouting. I was like, the printed word sucks. Matthew McConaughey is Hitler. Nobody listened.
Justin?
I want to shout out, speaking of networking, somebody that I think all three of us are familiar with and admire. I saw the one-man show of Tyler Wilson.
Dude. Tell me about it. Tell me, how good was it?
Doing a show called Lies Wide Open. I think he's doing a couple shows in Reno, where he's living now, and then Houston and Dallas. So if you are in those areas, then go ahead and make your way out there. It was really, really funny. He is exceptionally hilarious. The show is really well put together, and his magic is just top notch. Which, that's really one of the really hard things is in magic, to put together somebody with those kinds of close-up chops and that kind of sense of humor, which there are not a lot of them on the planet, and he is certainly one of them. It was great. As the three of us have seen a lot of magic shows. You guys probably more so than I have, but in general, if you're not there to kind of look at the finger flicking of a close-up show, it can be a little here's a problem. Guess what? I solved it. Here's a problem. Guess what? I solved it, in terms of the storytelling of it all, and that is not the case with Tyler. There is a larger story, and it unfolds in interesting and funny ways. And then, of course, it ends with something that is mind blowing in the magic sense. But just great stuff. Lies Wide Open, Tyler Wilson, and also go on Twitter at Unreal Tyler Wilson or Unreal Ty Wilson, and just light him up for not posting his dates on Twitter, which is what I spent most of my Sunday doing when I went to go get lunch with him. Oh, there was a funny moment though, real quick during the show, where my wife Ashley determined very early on that there were not a lot of women in the audience, as sometimes happens at magic shows, and was like, "Oh, there's only 3 girls here." She's used to be involved in magic on a smaller scale, and she's like, "All these girls are going to get called up. Like when there's only 3 girls, they will all get called up." Like, and so she's like, "There's no way that I'm not called up on stage." And I'm like, "Okay, well then just do me a favor. When he asks you what your name is, say that your name is Andy, Andy Main." And so she does, and I meet Tyler after the show, and she's like, "Wait, did you really like marry Andrew's sister?"
Well, it's not Andrew's sister.
No. Which was funny on a million different levels, but yeah,
That's
so that
amazing.
Was the funny stuff.
My pick is I've been working on coding projects. I've been sitting here burning through a lot of different shows. And I found a movie that came out a few years ago, British, I think it was maybe made for TV movie. And it stars Martin Freeman in it, in one of the roles in there. And it's about a very interesting period of computer history, which was the very early 1980s, late 1970s, but mostly early 80s. And it features a very interesting British personality who most Americans kind of aren't all that aware of. And that is Clive Sinclair, who was the creator of, but you've actually heard some of his stuff. You know, he was the inventor of, remember the Timex Sinclair computer?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was Sinclair was, is a serial entrepreneur, inventor who created things like one of the first, like digital watches, portable radio sets, TVs. All of that was very much this sort of, I would call him sort of like a British sort of Steve Jobs, but admittedly his business skills were not all that good, and his things tended to fall apart, and was sort of a bit of a problem for that. But he was a very forward-thinking guy that did have really interesting ideas on where things were going to go, and electric cars, all this sort of stuff. So it's sort of like the early ages of the British computing industry, where they made a very good run at getting into personal computing. They had one of Clive's employees came up to him and said, "Hey, we should make a personal computer," and Clive was like, "Nah, I'm not into it." So this guy went off and created the company that became Acorn Computers. I don't know if you remember Acorn from back in the day.
Oh, sure.
But that came there, and then Clive came and said, "Well, we'll get into this," and they came out with their Sinclair computer system, and it went into the fray. And so you had a number of British computer manufacturers getting it. So it's a movie about that period, and it's got a fun 80s soundtrack to it, and it's sort of a kind of a neat overall sort of movie. So it's on Netflix. Or excuse me, on rather YouTube. It's like look up Microman.
Right
Oh,
on.
nice, awesome.
Yeah,
And
Microman.
Freeman's awesome.
Yeah. So I thought it was just really just neat. And then you start, Clive Sinclair is just a very neat personality. So very, very fun. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. And it's been after.
Yeah, damn right it has.
So,
all right, guys, I'm going to hit the bathroom real quick before Hotline Monday. I'll talk to you.
are we
Yeah.
going to talk about the new podcast we're going to do that we record between our other ones called Bathroom Things?
Oh, yeah. No. It's called.
Is that before or after
Bloop
between
Poop
things?
Bloop Doop.
It'll be like a couple of them. It'll be like sort of thing we're just going to stream as we do that.
Simul podcasting.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We're going to have Cord Killers in about 2 hours right here, so keep an eye out. Or go check out Hotline Monday in the meantime. DCNS, I think, also just started. It's the block. Yeah, bye, Andrew. It's the Rock Block. While I pull a little bit of music, I'm going to just continue to stretch just a little bit until I can get some music out of the thing. Here we go. All right, guys. All right, see you later.